EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response. 5 to 10 years ago, you probably just knew it as antivirus, but now it's moved from getting rid of known bad files to full-blown user behavioral analytics and simulated code execution. EDR tech is cool as hell, but a lot of people assume that this alone is going to stop breaches, and that's just not the case because attackers have stepped up their game as well. You can even now buy an EDR bypass kit on the dark web. So I'm going to talk to you about how EDR works, how it can be bypassed, what you can do to detect, respond, and prevent EDR bypasses. Let's get into it. EDR is essentially a bunch of components like sensors, hooks, that monitor and gather telemetry on your processes, the files, drivers, event traces. They can even run local rules and send data to clouds for analysis, get some of that analytics. They can also take action, like responding to threats, like disconnecting itself from the internet or quarantining assets and files. These sensors and hooks typically run like a user application, but they also tend to have a kernel driver. No, not that kernel, but the layer of the operating system is what we're talking about. And this is the layer that sends information from the user land to the hardware land of the computer. So if an attacker gains kernel privileges and is able to disable telemetry, visibility, and controls in general, the EDR can be bypassed. So let's go bad guy and tell you how you can bypass EDR.
There are a few ways to bypass EDR, and sometimes we use combinations of multiple types. So let's go through a few of them. First is bring your own vulnerable driver. If you don't have a vulnerability to exploit, why not bring your own? I can get administrator or system permissions via the normal phish, exploit, local privilege escalation, but then dropping a signed legitimate driver file into a writable path gives me those normal tools and exposes those input and output controls. Then I can craft device I/O controls to read and write to the kernel memory. I can change tokens or disable kernel callbacks to the EDR that it relies on. How would you detect it? Things like sys files written to non-standard paths such as temp, app data, or vendor spoofed folders. Things like event ID 7045 for service installed correlated with driver loaded, event ID 6. Another way is through direct syscalls or unhooking. The ntdll.dll library exposes the user mode entry points or stubs that transition from application to the Windows kernel through NT APIs. EDRs hook into these to inspect kernel requests, but I can bypass that visibility by restoring or avoiding those hooked stubs or calling the kernel directly with small syscall stubs, achieved by unhooking, mapping a clean ntdll, reflectively loading a copy, or generating runtime syscall assembly. To detect this is going to be comparing on-disk versus in-memory ntdll, spotting the duplicate mappings, read-write allocations around syscall code, suspicious thread starts, and correlated driver or that IOCTL activity. You can also probably stop me if you had module integrity checks, EDR self-protection, as well as driver control enabled. The next one's a little bit trickier, but instead of unhooking and calling the kernel directory, I can also locate kernel structures such as eProcess and modify the linked lists and flags to hide processes, remove notification callbacks, or corrupt the entire monitoring structure. This isn't going to generate normal user mode API calls, so EDR heuristics are likely going to miss this. This is also known as direct kernel object manipulation, or DKOM. This is harder to do without tripping the wire, but you're going to find it pretty hard to detect me, because you're only looking really for discrepancies between kernel and user land process enumerations, missing process creation notifications, or sudden gaps in your event tracing for Windows telemetry. The next one is that event tracing or anti-malware scan interface tampering, or signed component abuse. I can tamper with the event tracing for Windows, for example, by altering provider tables or hooking into the ETW event write to suppress that telemetry. I might also bypass AMSI, anti-malware scan interface, by modifying or hooking the scan buffer so the scans always appear clean. Or, for funsies, I can abuse signed components such as sideloading, using legitimate signed executables or installers to load malicious DLLs with elevated privileges. So if you start to see anti-malware scan interface failures or initialization errors, or the event tracing for window providers being deregistered, replicated, replaced, or just changed, these signed or trusted executables loading DLLs from writable user-controlled non-standard paths. What I can also do is chain a bunch of these together. For example, I might get a foothold, drop a vulnerable driver, allowing me to escalate to get kernel access. I'll use DKOM to evade, use unhooking or those direct syscalls for user-led ops. Disable ETW or AMSI so you're scanning and you can't see that, you're none the wiser. Then I can drop payload or build more persistence in or hook in so you can't get rid of me.
So the most effective ways to mitigate some of these are enabling things like Microsoft vulnerable driver protections, secure boot, and memory integrity where it's supported. Using application control, starting in audit, then blocking on critical fleets so you don't kill your operations. Reducing local administrator access so you can't have driver installs all over the place. Driver installs should only really be like service accounts and go through change control processes. Hardening your provisioning, so drivers are only allowed via signed vendor pipelines or your management fleet, your MDM. Monitoring anti-malware scan interfaces and event tracing Windows health. If these are failing or like initialization issues, provider removals. Allow listing drivers and signers, so controls for these and vendor whitelists. Keep your EDR and drivers patched, ensuring your EDR runs as like a protected process where possible, and also just automating Intel ingestion. So known vulnerable driver IOCs, adding them to block list or those driver controls, application control policies. All of this is going to raise the difficulty of like bring your own vulnerable driver, direct kernel object manipulation. If you start to see it, a quick example playbook might be to isolate the network or admin access for this machine. You're going to collect memory captures, dump driver files, export sysmon, so particularly like event IDs 6, 7, and 10, Windows event logs, ETW traces. You're going to validate signers and hashes for vulnerable driver lists and allow lists. You're going to look at who installed the service. I think that's event ID 7045. Then you're going to hunt for things like DKOM signs, missing process notifications, the ntdll mismatches, device IO controls from parent processes, or some of those anti-malware scan interface tampering. If the kernel integrity is uncertain, just re-image it is probably the quickest, or at least the easiest to be safe. If legitimate, document your exceptions, tighten your rules so it's not going to fire all the time. The general rule is if you can't prove the kernel integrity, assume it's compromised. The final part here is not to scare you or say that EDR is not a useful control, but it's just that it shouldn't be your main or only cyber defense. If you need an assessment or advice on your organizational security, get in touch on my website, securitywarden.org, and please like and subscribe if you want more content like this.